Hi everyone, hi, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Shelly, and here is what is going on today. I am gonna do a book tag because it's Tag Tuesday, and I have found that just like I am a mood reader, I am also a mood tagger. There's something floating in the air. I am a mood tagger, meaning that I do the tag that I usually watched most recently and excites me the most. And so I know that there are some tags that I have been tagged in, and it doesn't mean that I am ignoring them because I'm not. But sometimes a tag catches my attention, and I'm like, "Ooh, that sounds really fun," and then I do that instead. So today we're going to be doing the Mookse. I have to look it up. 1 second. The Mookse and the GRIPES bucket list book tag. Okay, let me try that again. The Mookse and the GRIPES bucket list book tag. And Shawn, the book maniac, this is his original tag, and the idea behind it is that he is trying to promote a book podcast that was recently restarted. I haven't checked out the podcast, but I will. And so that's why it has this sort of long title. And the premise of the book tag is to talk about books that are on your bucket list. The ones that you want to read before you shuffle off this mortal coil, before you kick the bucket, before you leave this earth. So maybe they're not the most pressing books, and maybe they're not the most the highest priority, but they're there, and I don't know, I kind of think that they're haunting you. That's how I'm thinking of this tag. So I am actually going to talk about 11 books on my list that I own, because then they're even more pressing. There's even less reason not to read them. And yeah, I also wanted to say, as an aside, thank you so much for everybody who just was so sweet and supportive when I said that I was overwhelmed and feeling much better, was just having a day. And I also wanted to say, for all of you, those of you who showed support and kindness to me when I sent my oldest off to kindergarten, you know, a lot of you expressed your concern and just said really sweet things. So yeah, so my son is doing a lot better. He's enjoying school. I'm doing a lot better, both emotionally and with my oldest going to school. Okay, so let's get into the tag. So all of these books I own, and here is a little bit of background about me. I tend to buy books with the idealist version of myself in my head. Like, I am this literary reader who reads all of the finest books. I tend to buy books like that, but that's not what I tend to read. I read what intrigues me. I'm a mood reader. So often I get these books, and I may have been excited about them at the time, but that excitement wanes. But I keep these books because they're famous, classics. They still intrigue me in some way. So that's the premise of the books that I own. Something else that you might need to know about me is that for most of my life, I was a D and F'er, like a did not finisher. I would often read the first 30 to 100 pages of a book. I would lose a little bit of interest, and I would stop reading the book. And this is a habit that I have worked my way out of in the last decade, but my life has changed a lot. I have had 2 kids in the last 10 years. Been in graduate school. I was a teacher, so often I would start a whole bunch of books during summer, and then the moment school started and I began teaching, I had to, DNF, did not finish those books. But it doesn't mean that the books weren't good. A lot of times I set a book aside with the intention to get back to it when I felt inspired to get back to it. So that's where we're going to start. Oh, and there's a twist. Man, this is a very long introduction. But there's a twist. I'm watching my light fall apart. 1 second. All right, things are settled once again in the Swearingen household. Okay. Okay, so the twist is that you all in the comments get to vote on what book I ought to pick up, what 2 books actually I ought to pick up from this list. And I saw AJ Dunn do their list, and they made a promise, or they set out to finish the 2 books by the end of 2022. And I like that. I think that the books that you all choose will go on my to be read list for the by the end of 2022. So I have a year to do it. Okay, so let's start. I'm going to talk about first the books that I have started, but I have not finished. Okay, and the first one is The Complete Stories of Flannery O'Connor. Flannery O'Connor is a Southern Gothic writer. She writes very strange, unusual stories, but very, very interesting and intriguing short stories. I have worked my way through probably a third of this. I've also read her book, The Floaty in the Air. I've also worked through her book, Wise Blood. I've read that. That was great. And I know some of those sections are also in her complete short stories. So I've worked my way a third through it, but I think it's because it's short stories that I read 4 or 5 in the course of a week, and then I set it aside for months until somebody reminds me to pick it up again. I have some friends that really love her, and I do enjoy her short stories. I just haven't finished it, and I do plan on finishing it one day. So Flannery O'Connor's complete short stories. The next one I have read, again, about a third, and I'm sure that this was the case that I started it and then school started, and I was way too busy to focus on reading, and that would be Moby-Dick. And the shameful is sort of loose when I talk about this, but the shameful thing is that I own 2 copies of this. My husband and I set out to read it together. It is my dear friend's favorite novel. She's one of my closest friends in real life, and this is her favorite novel. And I got about a third of the way through. My husband, I think, got halfway through, and then we both became very busy, and I haven't picked it up since. But I know it's a classic, and I own 2 copies. So Moby-Dick by Herman Melville. The next book that I have started, I'm trying to think, what have I started? Okay, the next book is more, Diana Gabaldon's, Outlander. I have always wanted to be a series reader, somebody who reads series. I am not that, but I thought an epic love story, which is what this is supposed to be, an epic love story. Maybe I'll be an epic love story series reader. And so I've started this again. I think I started it a couple days before I had my first child, and then I had him, and life got very, very, very busy, and I didn't finish. But this is one of my sister's favorite series. She, I think, has reread it a couple of times, and it has always been on my somewhat bucket list, something I want to get to eventually. But the flurry of the popularity has passed, and so sometimes I sort of, I'm like, oh, well, I'll get to it eventually, but it sits on my shelf and looks at me longingly. All right, the last book that I have started, I believe, not finished, is, and this is not mine, but this is Marcel Proust's In Search of Lost Time. I don't want to read the whole thing. Maybe I'll change my mind. I'm not planning on reading the whole thing, but I've always wanted to read the first book, Swan's Way, and I read the majority of it. Again, I know that I read it while my first son was very little, and I was, I don't want to say struggling my way through, but you know, it takes a lot of brain power to read Proust, and at that point in time I was so exhausted, and so I put it down and I never picked it back up. This is my husband's favorite book. Series of books is my husband's favorite book. It's supposed to be one long book, or I don't know. I'm not sure of the structure of it, so maybe you can tell me in the comments below. We own 3 physical copies of this book. We own the Kindle version of the book, and we own the audiobook version. There's no reason why I should not read this book. But yeah, you can let me know what you think in the comments below. But yeah, 5 versions of Marcel Proust in Search of Lost Time. All right, I'm looking and my list is getting smaller. Okay, another book that I have read parts of in undergraduate school, and I actually recently picked it up because Steve Donahue keeps on talking about it. And so I picked The Odyssey by Homer, and I have the exact version that Steve Donahue has with the deckled edges and Robert Fagel's translation. And yeah, so I just, it's a classic. I want to read it. I want to see how well I get along with it. And so this it's on my list of, I will get to it eventually. And yeah, again, I've also owned it for years and it has sat there unread. Okay, now we're moving on to the books that I own, but have never picked up and would like to. The first one would be Donna Tartt's The Goldfinch. It was a Pulitzer Prize winner of that year, and a chunky but small book. I've heard good things about it. There's no reason why I shouldn't like it. And I have always wanted to read it, and it has to do with, I think, art and mystery, you know, all the things. So tell me, have you read it? Should I read it? Let me know. We're now getting into a couple of book buying things that I bought because I was thinking, oh, I want to be that kind of reader. And the first one is Catherine the Great by Robert K. Massie. I was like, I want to be someone who reads big, chunky history books. And we watched the TV show, my husband and I watched the TV show The Great, which made me very interested in the figure Catherine the Great. And of course, I Googled, what is the best book on Catherine the Great? And Google spat back out Robert K. Massie's Catherine the Great. And yeah, how many times can you say Catherine the Great in the course of, 2 minutes? A lot, I'm guessing. And so yeah, so I've wanted to read it. I picked this up more recently, but I do want to read it. It's just not pressing and something I want to get to before I die. Okay. All right. Two books by the same author. And again, Steve Donahue, you influence me. You make me want to be a better reader. And Steve Donahue praised Edith Wharton for her novels. And so we have House of Mirth and The Age of Innocence. The Age of Innocence I have owned for years and years and years, and it has sat on my shelf for all of that time. And the House of Mirth I picked up recently, and I've just never I've never gotten to it. I mean, this is a recent purchase, but I have a feeling that it could sit on my shelf for years before I get to it, and I don't really want that to happen. So yeah, Edith Wharton, she just sits there. Also a Pulitzer Prize winning author, also won the Pulitzer Prize for The Age of Innocence. I was really into buying Pulitzer Prize winning books at one point because yes, I wanted to be that type of reader, and I never got to it. Now, okay, here's a book that I've wanted to get to for a long time. It was a gift, and I don't know, I think it's one of those books that I feel like will take me a while to read, and so that, therefore, I just haven't read it, and that is The Ship of Theseus, but this is a J.J. Abrams book, J.J. Abrams and Doug Dorst book, and it's a book that has all of these little notes in it on purpose. The copies are written like this, and it looks like a fun read, but it also looks like something that might take me a while to read because there's so many extra little notes and conversations on the side, but it means that it could also be a really fun read. And yeah, I think I've just been slightly intimidated because I feel like it will take me a while because of the format. So that is one that I've owned for a while and haven't gotten to. Yeah, I don't know. It's a really neat looking book though, and I've heard good things about it. I just haven't read it. All right, and the last book is on my 1001 children's books that I must read before you grow up. So it's on the list. I've owned it for a while, and it sits there, and that would be Hayao Miyazaki's Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, sorry. And it is, I mean, it's stunning. It's so beautiful. Hayao Miyazaki is a fantastic illustrator, animator, tells beautiful stories, adapts beautiful stories, and turns them into something new and fresh and gorgeous. I grew up watching his movies, Kiki's Delivery Service, My Neighbor Totoro, and all of the stuff, and we own this. We own the book. It's on my 1001 children's books you must read before you go up, and it sits on my shelf. And I do read comic books occasionally, and I haven't gotten to it. So tell me, what book should I read before the end of 2022? Let me know. And there are people that I want to tag. Okay, so I am going to echo AJ Dunn by saying Michael, K. Vaughan, and Shawn the Book Maniac. I think tag Michael as well. I want to tag Marilyn Maya Mendoza. She is the baby boomer booktuber, and I'm really curious as to what she would like to read before the end of her life. That sounds really morbid. Sorry, Marilyn. No morbidity in my heart. Just curious about what your list looks like. I'm also going to tag David Wiley because David is always such an ambitious reader and such an interesting reader, and so I'm very curious as to what he has to say. And then I'm also going to tag, because this person tags all of us to do his tags, and that would be Jim's books, reading, and stuff. I would like to know, Jim, what do you want to read? What's on your bucket list? Tell me. And that's it. Okay, thank you all for spending this time with me. Thank you for being here. Let me know if you're not a creator, but you comment. If you're a commenter, if you're a viewer, tell me one book that's on your bucket list. Just one, because I'm really curious to know. And if you are a creator, please, you too. I echo it. I want to know your one book that you want to read before you die. I'm super curious. Okay. Thank you all for spending this time with me. And that's it. All right. Bye now. Wait. Before I say bye. Wait. Jack the Rambling Raconteur. You have such interesting reading taste. I want to know, Jack. Jack, please tell me. Please. I want to know. Bucket list books. I'm sure that Shawn tagged you, but I'm also echoing the tag. Please tell me. Okay, that's it. Bye.